This so-called interaction that this creepy man and I had felt like it lasted forever. When I decided to move farther from him, he started to get closer. This left us circling the store for a good 5 minutes. Once again, Maya was taking forever. I wanted to check on her, but he was always either by the bathroom or I knew he would be able to reach that corner by the time I could get there. In the couple times that I passed the kid sitting by the register, I tried to give him some type of glance that would be like, help me, but he wouldn't look up. It got to the point where I decided to just stand still next to the guy behind the counter. If I was near someone, I don't think he would really want to get near me. I tried to make conversation with the kid again, but he once again was so dull and I could barely get a word out of him. Geez, could this guy look up for 1 second and see that I was being stalked? Was I being crazy? No, no way. There was no doubt that this guy was following me around the store. I started fiddling around with the lighters and packs of gum that were on the counter. I did this for a solid 3 minutes or so. I eventually started getting dirty looks from the kid. Not because he cared about the products, but the fact that I was disturbing him. But come on, where was Maya? It's been a solid 10 minutes. At this point, I don't care anymore. So what if the guy kidnaps me? It'll at least make this bachelorette weekend be over. But as soon as I was about to barge into the bathroom with the risk of being captured, Maya walked out. This is FourFinger, the story of a group of friends finding out that their time left to live is limited, but it's done so in an unusual way. Chapter 4, the remainder of the night of January 19th, 2003. So, you'd think the first reaction I would have when I saw Maya would be to grab her and drag her out the door to get her out of there, but I froze. I pretended like I didn't see her at first. I didn't want to create a sense of urgency for both Maya and the creepy guy, so I let her walk to me first. I saw the man watch her walk over to me, but he didn't move from his spot of looking at the drinks. She greeted me and apologized for taking so long. She claimed that her zipper got stuck. 1? 10 minutes for a faulty zipper? Alright, sure. But 2? She was wearing sweatpants. But I was in no position to discuss the status of her pants. She asked if we were ready to go, and I said yes. She started to walk towards the door once I said yes, but I grabbed her arm and pulled her back before she could take any more steps. I knew she was going to ask why I did that, so as soon as she looked at me, I put my finger over my lips. I didn't want it to seem like we knew the guy was stalking me. Along with this, I glanced over to the man to see if he was looking at us or not. Luckily, he was pretending to get a drink out of the fridge. I knew that this was the only chance we had to get out of there with a head start, so I bolted from the register to the front door, and I dragged Maya with me. As we pushed the door open, there was a man walking in. Poor guy was probably terrified. Probably thought we were drunk or something. Sorry, dude. Just practically being followed. No big deal. As I was pulling Maya, she obviously asked what I was doing, but I told her to just keep moving. I was too nervous to look behind me to see if the guy was following us. As we ran through the small parking lot towards the car, I told Maya to get her keys and unlock the car. She continuously asked me what was going on, but I just kept repeating to get her keys. Once we got to the car, I let go of Maya and ran to the passenger side of the car, expecting the door to be open by now. But as I vigorously pulled on the handle, it wouldn't budge. I looked up and across the car to see Maya gasping for air while once again trying to ask what was going on. I had a sense of urgency in my voice this time, as I wasn't going to tell her to unlock the car one more time. I knew she understood my message this time since her eyes got super wide and I saw her reach into her jacket pocket. Of course, they were stuck in her pocket. Obviously, in a sense of urgency, nothing ever works in my favor. As she was struggling, I looked up at the front door of the 7-Eleven to see if the man was following us. It was no surprise that he was heading towards us, but without that sense of urgency like Maya and I had. Through the front window, I saw him rather slowly walking towards the front door. Just walking, like a normal pace. If anything, slower than a normal pace. But I wasn't falling for it. We needed to leave. I looked over at Maya as she was still fiddling with her keys. I screamed her name and told her to hurry up. pure panic in my voice. That second, she finally got the key in her hand and pressed the button to open the door. I've never been so relieved to hear that clicking sound in my life. I yanked the door open and threw myself inside as fast as possible, Maya doing the same thing. I knew that we couldn't stop now. We needed to get out of here while we were ahead. I told her to start the car and start driving, but she was already 2 steps ahead of me. She had one hand on the wheel and one on the gear shift already. As we began to pull out of the parking spot, I looked towards the door of the 7-Eleven once again. The man was through the door already, a couple of steps in front actually. We had to drive by the door to get out of the parking lot, so I was expecting him to start chasing us, or at least he would start running towards his own car, but I was left surprised. I told Maya in the moment to drive as distant from the door as possible, and she did, but the man remained still. He just watched Maya and I drive away. He looked lifeless just standing there. As we pulled out of the lot, I turned my head to look out the back window, and I made eye contact with him. Till this day, I've never had that amount of chills run through my body, and I still get them just thinking about it. As we drove up the hill back towards the cabin, we stayed silent for a couple of minutes. I think Maya knew that I was pretty shaken up from the experience. Now, today, it's sad that it seems like these kind of things happen to women all the time. But this was 2003. It wasn't as common back then, and it was my first experience feeling like I was being followed. Didn't exactly want to do it again. But as I calmed down, I told Maya the entire story. There wasn't really much to it, as the whole interaction was maybe 10 to 15 minutes. I explained how I wasn't able to go anywhere without him either watching me or being very close to me. I also told her how I stood by the kid behind the counter for a reason, and yanked her out of that store for the same exact reason. She apologized for taking so long, both in the bathroom and for getting her keys out. I assured her that it was fine. I was just happy that we got out of there. Oh yeah, and don't think that I wasn't constantly checking behind us to see if he was following us. But by the time we got to the cabin, we never had a car behind us. We approached the house, and Maya and I got out of the car together. We climbed the stairs to the front door, and I stopped dead in my tracks, as I remembered that we actually went to 7-Eleven for a reason, the first aid kit. Maya opened the door to go inside, while I went back to the car to get the bag. As always, I speed walked both ways. I swear I heard some coyotes or something in the distance. When I walked through the doorway into the cabin, it was quiet, no one to be seen. This clearly left me confused, as Maya had just walked through the door. I closed the door behind me and put the bag down. I called all the girls' names, twice in fact, no response. There was no way that this was happening. I didn't have the patience to be pranked with what had just happened to me. Maya was kind of a jerk for making the girls hide to scare me when I just had the biggest wake-up call in my life. I continued to call their names until I got a response, all while constantly turning around and looking in closets to make sure they weren't going to jump scare me. As I called out their names for one of the last times, I heard a very faint noise. I tried to figure out where it was coming from, but I was too caught off guard. I called for everyone once more, and I heard the words "down here" from someone. I think it was Caroline, but I wasn't sure. I also wasn't sure which direction it came from, but my best guess was downstairs, so I went down there. As I turned the corner of the landing, I saw Caroline, Autumn, and Logan sitting on one of the couches. I asked them what was up, and they all looked at me with blank stares. Confused, I asked what had happened. Without hesitation, Logan held her hand up, her thumb completely missing. I got lightheaded right there. Did this seriously happen again? How did this happen again? I was so confused. I'm confused just talking about this years later. Long story short, I obviously asked what had happened. All 3 of them claimed they didn't know. It was the same thing that happened with Caroline. How do you not know what happened, especially when there were 3 of you here? There was no bleeding this time. Logan looked completely unfazed by her finger being gone. I just said screw it. I wasn't dealing with this tonight. I ran back upstairs to get the first aid kit, went back downstairs, and helped Caroline wrap her finger that had seemed to stop bleeding. I mean, both Caroline's and Logan's fingers were cleanly sliced off. There had to have been some method behind this. Are Caroline and Logan doing this for fun? Or was it truly an accident on Caroline's part and Logan wanted the attention too? Or was this Autumn? There were too many possibilities to wrap my head around. You'd think I would stay downstairs and try to figure this out with the other girls, but nope, I was done for the day. I said goodnight to the girls and went up to my room. I locked my door, I locked my windows, I pushed a desk in front of my door, tied the window handles together with a sock, and everything that I can think of to guarantee that I wouldn't lose a limb tonight. I wanted this stupid weekend to be over with. I didn't want to go in the first place. Now we have missing limbs on our hands. One in itself is weird, but now two, and they claim they didn't know what happened? This had to be some type of setup. This was straight out of a movie. Thanks for listening to Chapter 4 of FourFinger. Tune in on February 4th to figure out what happens next to the girls in the cabin. Be sure to follow our Instagram at FourFinger Podcast to get some sneak peeks and behind the scenes of future episodes. While you're waiting for the next episode, be sure to check out podcast372.com for some more original student-produced podcasts.